Welcome back to The Rhode Show. Oh, this is a laughable one today. This morning in The Buzz, just in time for Mother's Day, we're talking about the ideal American family size. Year after year, Gallup poll results show 2 children is the norm for most families, but historians say, as we know, that was not always the case. Back in the 1800s, the typical American woman had 7 to 10 strapping young children, and by the latter part of the 20th century, 2 became the desired number as women took more of a presence in the workforce. So what else has changed? Well, experts say the way adults view children is now different, because you know, in the earlier times, those kids were assets.
Yeah.
They could be put to work at like 4 years old. They also take care of you when you were old. Not to mention, you didn't have to pay for like a crazy education. But today, kids require an investment in order to have a successful adulthood. In fact, the Department of Agriculture tracks annual family expenditures, and they found that middle-income 2-parent families can expect to spend $290,000 to raise a child until the age of 18. But many parents and parents-to-be say if money were not an issue, they would want to have a bigger family. I mean, you know, I think one of the reasons people, well, we all know why they used to have many more children.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have to say why?
I also think, oh God.
Well, you know, like birth control and things like that were not around.
And
so
also, I feel like maybe life expectancy wasn't as long, so they wanted more kids just because maybe theirs, you know, weren't living as long as they were with diseases, and there weren't any
kids died. A lot of people died young too. So you see,
so they probably had
they might
7
have had
or
more
10,
right, so that's the medical theories.
But the other thing too is, you know, it was the thing, you know, everybody had large families, you know, you just did. I mean, it just recently changed. I mean, my mother comes from a family of 6 children, you know what I mean? It wasn't like that long ago that people were still having these big families.
Well, let's look at the norm back then, too. It was pretty much the father worked and the mother stayed home, so they had time to raise all of these kids.
Yeah.
It was expected almost that's how you would operate, whereas now, both parents are working, and financially, that's a burden. Kids are expensive.
I don't think people did the math back then. You know, I don't think they thought about things like that. We're just so numbers consumed now, don't you think?
Well, everything costs more now, and you know, people are making less, and everything costs more. It's all messed up. But you know, it's not really the norm, because my mom was an only child, and my dad had a sister. She passed away, but so it's not like that was I mean, it wasn't out of the ordinary to have smaller families, but you're right. But nowadays, if you hear somebody says, "Oh, I've got 3 kids," you're like, "Wow."
I know. I feel like I have a big family.
But you know the other thing too is
we have 4.
You have
and
4.
It's like, oh my gosh, 4 kids.
Yeah.
I could never. And I'm like, it's really not that. You know, you grow up with it, and I think all of us. You're one of 4 as well, and you have 3, and you're what?
One of 2.
Okay, 1 of 2, but you have 3 as well.
Correct.
So I feel like if you grow up with that environment of having more siblings and just having a bigger family, then you also want a bigger family, because you know what it's like. Whereas dynamics shift, and
what were you going to say, Patrick?
I forgot.
I know. It's you get too many kids.
No, I don't know what I was going to say. What was I going to say?
Don't you think money affects your family planning decisions, though? I mean, like going from 2 to 3, when you do the math, you're like, you know?
Yeah, but you know what? You know,
but it's just great having. I love having 3. It's always been my lucky number.
In the house too. Maybe you don't physically have room.
Think for a minute. Think for a minute. What was it?
I don't know. It was something to do with kids, having kids, wanting more kids. Not having a lot of kids.
I don't know.
I forget what it was.
We just have too many kids. I keep saying it.
I don't know. But you know what? If I could afford it, I would have a whole, you know, hockey team's worth of kids.
That's the thing.
If I could stay home,
if money
and
was not an issue, how many kids would you have?
The other thing I think, though, is that the sanity level would be like ridiculous if I had to stay home and I had like 6 kids. I think that's why women had martinis at like noontime back in the day. They did. They'd play bridge and had martinis, and the kids just kind of ran around, you know?
Man, I can't remember what I was going to say.
Maybe it'll come back
Maybe you'll think in the kitchen when we're with Billy, and then it'll pop back
Stay
in your
tuned.
head. Yeah.
You won't want to miss this if I can ever think of it.
Exciting.
But you know, whether you have 1 or 3, children are a blessing, and they're great. So I'm all for the family thing. Right, Courtney?
Absolutely.
Have more, Court.
Mine will be 9 months next week. So it's funny, people keep asking when you're going to have another, and I'm going to give it a little time, but I would like more kids. Kids are fun, so I think today we will see when she gets older. But everyone is sharing what they think on the live blog, and, you know, what kind of family family they're from, how many kids and things like that. And Anthony says, it depends on what the parents can afford. Raising children is costly. The more you can afford, the more children you're likely to have. And Jean said, when I first got married, I wanted 6 kids. Then I had my first and only wanted 1. She said, I think the ideal family is 2 kids with 2 parents. And Iraq says, big families aren't that far in the past at all. My mother is the oldest of 9. That is a lot of kids. Here is our poll right underneath the live blog. What do you think is the ideal family size? A, 2 or fewer, B, 3 or 4, C, 5 plus, or D, I don't really have an opinion. We have lots of comments on the Roadshow Facebook page this morning. This first one's from Sandra Alfaro, and she says, 3 kids, 2 parents, perfection. She said, well, at least that's what I think about having in the future. Kat Lang says, so far I got 1 of each and it's pretty perfect, but I want 2 of each and it'll be extra perfect. And Amanda Smith says, 1 to 3 kids, nothing more, not in this economy anyway. So it looks like it's more than 1 so far, so we'll see what the poll results are at the end of the show and see what you guys say.